Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on creativity in dementia care. Those of you who have joined us in the past will know that we open up this channel on a regular basis to practitioners to exchange learning, experience, and best practice. Today, we're delighted to have Theresa McNally with us. Theresa is a private practitioner with well over a decade's experience of bringing creativity to dementia care. And here at Yorkshire Care, we've been very lucky to be able to work with Theresa on a semi-regular basis over a number of years. Dementia is one of those conditions that is kind of front and center of our focus when we're developing our chair range. It's absolutely critical to us, and we bring a focus in terms of adjustability, posture, and pressure relief for those who are likely to be in a seating position for a significant period of time. An appropriate issue that those living with dementia have to embrace. It's also the case with products that we distribute. The razor chairs and the hip guard. The hip guard, a product that protects fallers from those debilitating hip fractures that we know cause so much damage. Balance clearly is a major issue with those living with dementia, and it's a significant focus for us here at Yorkshire Care. And with that, I'll pass you over to Theresa. I know it's going to be a thought-provoking, creative, incredibly interesting session. Any questions that you might have, please add to the chat. We'll be doing an FAQ section at the end, and we'll be picking off as many of your questions as we possibly can. And with that, I'll pass you over to Theresa.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming along. I'm just going to start by saying I'm a little bit nervous about this because I'm excited about it and it matters a lot to me. Whenever I talk about my work at all, I want it to be the very, very best. I want everyone who is here to get the best from me. So I've put I put a little bit of prep into this, so I'm just hoping it's going to go well. And if I say I'm a little bit nervous, it kind of gets it out there. I've also lit an incense stick just to kind of bring calm vibes into the room. So if you do see smoke pouring across the screen, the house isn't on fire, it's my incense. And I've got a very naughty cat. He's currently asleep in the corner. I'm hoping he's going to stay asleep and won't bother us. If he does wake up, I'm going to just have to push him out of the room. But anyhow, I'm going to just start with that. Just a little moment of calm. So welcome. I'm Theresa McNally, and I'm a puppeteer, a musician, storyteller, sometimes clown, and a mental health nurse, if people need to hear that, because sometimes those other things kind of scare people a little bit and they think, well, that's all a bit too much for me. And then when they hear a mental health nurse, then that can put it into a different context. So that's always good to have in my pocket, I think, but I do relate more and more these days to being a creative practitioner. So I'm going to be talking about why creativity is such an important part of dementia care. It's probably the part that I feel more comfortable in, but it also works. You know, we have this condition that we don't have a cure for. there's a lot of amazing research going on, but in the meantime, we need something. And I think that it plays to people's strengths. I think that creativity, creative arts, play to people's strengths. A lot of the other things that is involved in dementia care often points out the deficits in people. You know, if you think about like the mini mental test, and I'm not criticizing any of these things, but I'm just saying that someone who is having one of those tests, they're pretty much been shown how not capable they are, and can be left with a feeling of look what I've lost. But I think that when we use creative arts, it's not about, anyone can be involved in creativity. It's not about your intellectual capabilities or your ability to recall facts. It's about feelings. It's about your opinions and your tastes, and that's why it brings us much more level. So I don't do PowerPoint, I do pencil point. So our kind of, you know, things we're going to talk about today, and I'll hold this up a bit clearer. So why choose creativity? It makes us equal. We can all have an opinion. It plays to people's strengths, as I've said. It focuses on opinions and tastes, not facts. It's in the moment. It's here. We're in the moment. We don't need to be thinking about the past or the future. It's beautiful. Art is beautiful. Art fills our hearts, and we know that we lost that for quite a while over the pandemic and all those lockdowns. And I know for me, when we started stripping the world of all the softness, you know, you go into shops and anything that you could touch was taken away. And I remember going into a cafe and they used to have beautiful flowers and they were all gone and cushions were gone. And all that soft stuff is actually what makes the world just a bit more beautiful. Creativity works. I'm going to be talking about examples of that. And also, when I'm using the word creativity, I'm just really talking about doing things differently. I have dyslexia and dyspraxia, so I have to do things differently because I can't really do them the way they're supposed to be done, because that I find very difficult. So I tend to make things up. I tend to make my own ways of doing it. And so for me, art and creativity has been the things that have meant my life has been successful, rather than battling with things that I can't do. So I'm going to start. I've got a bit of a kind of script here. I might go off the rails a little bit, but I'll keep trying to bring myself back. So a little story. One of my earliest memories is I lived just outside Glasgow, sort of near Paisley. One of my earliest memories, probably early 70s. I was maybe about 7. Having like my mum and other mums all sitting on some steps in the place that we used to live in, and I'm dressed up with in my mum's clothes, performing for all the mothers, putting on little shows for them, and you know, whiz forward, and I feel I still do stuff like that. It's lovely. So I studied art, which kind of made sense. It was the thing I was best at, and I loved, and I came down to England and studied art. And then I had a couple of years kind of rocky. I sometimes say that I fell down a rabbit hole for a few years and didn't really know what to do. But I have a little story from down that rabbit hole, really. So it's 1990, and I'm in Leeds, and I'm going to London. Okay, I'm going to see a band called the Grateful Dead. Some of you might know them, American band. And I'm hitching. This is the 90s. People hitched around. They might still do it. I'm not advising them to do it. But anyway, so I was going to hitchhike, and I was with a guy who was probably not the best, but so we were in Leeds, and we were running down the street in Leeds trying to get to the motorway to hitch. And it was the street that the market's on, and it might be North Street or Boar Lane. I'm never sure of the streets in Leeds. But anyhow, we were rushing. I don't quite know why we were rushing, because we weren't catching a bus around, but we were rushing. And so this is my memory. We were running down the street. He was in front of me, I was behind. And something caught my eye. And on the pavement, there was a woman standing there. And she, in my memory, she had either a rug or a blanket or something, and she had some toys with her. And I don't know whether she was busking, whether it was street performance. It was really, really quick. This was just out the corner of my eye. And as I passed her, she reached out to me and she says, "A cup of tea and a song." But I ran past because I was getting on with where I was going, and there was just something. I've never forgot her. There was something about, who was she? What was she doing? I'm so intrigued in this world. Was she, whatever it was, I wanted so much to stop and have a cup of tea and a song with her. And I see what I do after all these years. It's kind of like that. I'm offering a cup of tea. I love tea. And a song. It's just that something out of the ordinary, something that when you're in your kind of world and you're rushing past, it just takes you, it's a bit kind of abstract or whatever. So yeah. Art is about our opinions and tastes. How can we communicate with people who are living with dementia when a lot of the conversations hit dead ends very, very quickly? What did you have for your lunch? Where was it you were born? Well, I can't even remember that. Do I have children? What's my husband's name? Do I have a husband? I can't even remember anything. I'm overwhelmed. I can't think of any of the right answers. But how about, what do you think of this picture? Do you like her hair? Do you think that was tickly that was round her neck? What do you think of the fabric? Now, I don't need to know the right answer. I can say, I think it's rubbish. I think her hair's a mess. I can tell you something that will not expose what I'm thinking inside, and it won't expose my disability. It won't expose that I don't know the right answer, but I know my answer. Who do you think the artist was? Where do you think the artist was standing? Do you think the artist knew her? Would you wear a coat like this? You know, you can you can get a load from that conversation. So this is more a cognitive stimulation. This is about us in the moment, looking at it, focusing on our brains, focusing on what we can offer to that conversation. And when I'm speaking to people who live with dementia, I like to stay in that place of I wonder what you think, rather than what is the answer to that. So we can all have an opinion. You can do it about anything. I wonder what you think of my hair. I wonder what you think. Do you think I suit this colour? It can just change the conversation, that person can just have a little bit of an upper hand. So it doesn't matter what area you're working in. You might not be using art per se, but you can always have a little picture in your pocket. You might be going into someone's house to change a dressing on their legs, but maybe you have a couple of pictures, and while you're doing that, you're saying, "Oh, do you know, I can't decide which dress I like better. Can you help me?" Maybe you've got a little magazine or something that you've made yourself that's just got a few pages. You know, it can be very, very, very simple, but it takes you to a place that you're together. You're two people looking at dresses, and which one would you wear if you were going to a party? The next thing, two things that I've learned in my life that I'm incredibly thankful for. When I was young, I learned to play guitar. I was about 11 when I learned to play guitar, and I also, when I was about 12, I learned to make my own clothes. And that's two things that I'm so thankful for, because they have served me no end in my life. Yeah, so music is this is the best piece of equipment that you can have when you're working with people living with dementia, because everybody knows music, everyone recognizes a guitar. It also, I guess, I can control the focus, so I can sing, I can play. That can take that spotlight of what's going on, what am I supposed to be doing. It can take that off of you and put it on me. It can provide, again, something that a shared language. There's some songs that they're like medicine. They're just like medicine. You can just pick these songs out and they just do wonders. So one of them is, if I knew you were coming, I'd have baked a cake, baked a cake, baked a cake. If I knew you were coming, I'd have baked a cake. How'd you do, how'd you do, how'd you do? Now, I usually get not even to the end of the first line and people join in. Everybody kind of knows that song. I guess people from who were born in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, would generally know that song, and you can join in, you can make up your own words. It's just bringing something different. So a lot of my work has been about music, using music, either running music groups. Sometimes I've run very big music groups. I've run music groups for families to come, which is very special because it's lovely to be able to invite families to see their loved ones in a place that for that moment they're succeeding, for that moment they're doing okay, that you can see what your mum can contribute. Now, I think in certain circumstances, people living with dementia they're just kind of running on their survival skills. But when you bring in like music, it's not about surviving, you're thriving a bit more. Sometimes I've done one-to-one music, bedside music. I've been with people who are very poorly at the end of their life. Sometimes I've just walked around when I've worked in care homes, and it's almost like environmental music. So you're just bringing like a live instrument, a different kind of vibration in. And I notice when I've walked about that staff just start behaving slower, they talk quieter. If I'm just sitting there with a guitar and playing music, and I can just mean that their day's a bit brighter and calmer too. It's for them. So this work is for everyone. Some lovely examples, I guess. Playing for couples, playing for husbands and wives, and maybe playing a favourite song, and just being witness. A lot of the work I do is being witness to really beautiful things, and sometimes no one else will ever see what I have witnessed. It's really hard to sometimes feedback what it is that I do, but when I've been with a couple and I've seen the love that they share and they're exchanging between each other, and maybe my music is a backdrop to that, that is so incredibly special. That is like the most beautiful job, whatever you're offering to give someone. Or to see a man who's living with dementia stand up and invite his wife up to dance, and the two of them are dancing, and they could be anywhere for that moment. They're not in a care home for that moment, they're in some dance hall back in the days that they first fell in love. It's just really very lovely. I think playing at the bedside of people who are at the end of their life, again, is an incredibly special, almost sacred place to be invited to be when you are there and someone's family member says, "Will you play for my husband?" Or I remember one case that a staff member, a resident had died, and the staff member, she had died very suddenly. The staff member wanted me to go into her room and play some music in her room while she was there, and she died. And there was just something so moving about being asked that, to go into that incredibly sacred place, really, just to put some different kind of vibrations in there. So it really is, it's from the sublime to the ridiculous. It's the whole spectrum. And you might not, if you're thinking about using music yourself, then if you do play an instrument, then you have that, but don't worry too much. you can play a few chords. You could learn how to play a few chords, and you can do an awful lot with that. Ukuleles are very popular nowadays, and you can learn to play those quite easily. You're just bringing something in that's just, it's saying something. It's got a different message. It's here to do something differently. It's away from, you know, we need to think about the journey that people who are living with dementia have taken from that initial, what's the name for that, or what's that word, or, you know, those very beginnings of dementia, right through all of the months and years until they meet us as care providers, as professional people. There's been a lot of sadness and hurt and trauma and loss, and just to meet people who are doing something that's not all about the kind of medical stuff can be really refreshing. So I think that whatever you're offering there is, it'll be really useful. So music. So we'll kind of revisit that. Just doing a little time check. We're not too bad. I want to a good few years ago, I don't know how, sometimes I just get into things and I'm not quite sure how I got there. I discovered puppetry, and I think that I'd always liked puppetry. Probably grew up with puppetry like a lot of people. We grew up with Rainbow and Basil Brush and the Muppets, and there was so much of our childhood that was puppetry. Maybe we didn't even think about it. But I found myself on a course with the London School of Puppetry. It's wonderful course, quite classical puppetry. It's very well taught, and it's a fantastic, you know, place to study. So I got into puppetry, and there's lots and lots. So some people get a bit freaked out by puppets. So if you do, I'm kind of sorry. You might want to look away. I'm going to. Puppetry is the art of bringing something that is not alive to life. And you can do that with so many things. So I now want to give you some demonstrations of different ways that I use puppetry. So this is a rod puppet. So rod puppets, you are on rods. You operate them from behind, so you sit slightly away. People who live with dementia are already in a place that things have changed, rules have changed, what makes sense have changed. I find that when someone doesn't have dementia, then they ask questions. They're not sure what their part is. If you've got a puppet, what am I supposed to do? What are you going to ask of me? When someone's living with dementia, they're already there. And I've brought puppets out, and people have said things like, "Oh, it's okay, we know each other." Right? Okay. So because in that world that you're in, that strange kind of enchanted dreamlike place, this is quite normal for you. I've got a record player down here. I'm really, you know, going back today. So, and I'm going to just play a little bit of music. Oh no, but not that track. This is a ooh. Ooh. I'm in your garden, your arms. So just the ball is over. The air ain't sheltered, so cold, that we not breath, feel the need, but let them free, free the breath. Oh, while I am each of them still things let me shift me the rolling tone that only the moment that will ever so fucking hard. Oh, the ravens in the tower come So that's just a little example of the rod puppet. So I've used this puppet many times, and I've used her in creating like a little different environment for people to come into. And that can be really nice, like creating a room where you've got lights in the backdrop like that and music, and it can take people away from that place that they can be overwhelmed, because you know, sitting in a room with other people who are living with dementia, we know why care works like that, but that can be a lot for people, that can be a lot for their heads, and they get overwhelmed. So to take people away into another place, and so this little puppet, I guess the story is that she's got a feather and she's just loving it. She's just kind of exploring it, and she's soft, and she can fall on your knee. And I often would sit her in people's laps, and people, I think, sometimes the part of the beauty of puppetry is that we can believe that puppets know us, that puppets, you can tell puppets things. People tell her all sorts of stuff, the things that people have shared with her and told her, or it can be, I've seen a lot of beautiful things. I've seen once I was working with a man, and he wasn't using language, and he used a wheelchair, and he came into this little show, and he just sat very still. There was no eye contact for a while, but I was moving the puppet around. At one point she can fly, so she's flying off, and as she was just above him, he caught her eye, and so I could then direct her in his vision. And this man was a really big man. He'd been a farmer. He had these huge big hands, and he reached his hands up, but not in a grabbing way. He reached his hands up and he put his hands around her waist really gently, and he just lowered her onto his lap, and he just gave her the softest little kiss. And it was so moving, and it showed me that he was more articulate with his hands, his dexterity, than maybe we thought, that there was empathy there. You know, he wanted to take care of her, and that's what we want to do with puppets. We see their vulnerability, and maybe that helps us understand our vulnerability as well. And he was so gentle with her, and then he cried, and it was just so moving. It was a very beautiful experience, and that's the stuff that, again, I'm witnessing, this kind of lovely things that just all goes in my kind of bag of puppetry happenings, really. So that's my little rod puppet. I'm going to still doing okay for time. Glove puppets are again what they say. They're the gloves. So it's something that you put inside your body. It becomes part of your body. This is a little story that I've used. It's called The Glovely. So I'll just really tell you what the story is. It's about these creatures. I also make all my own puppets, which it kind of it appeals to my love of textiles and making. So this little story, and it's just a little fun story, and all these things really are little offerings, and people can make what they will of them. And I don't have a really structured story. It's more that this is, you know, it's always open for adaptation and adding from the person who is performing for. So glove puppets are good because they can pick things up on their own. So this story is about these creatures called the Glovelies. And when the Glovelies are born, they are all given something that they have to carry around for all of their life. And the Glovelies don't always know what these things are. These strange shaped things that they have to look after. They're told you have to look after these, but they're not ever really sure what they're for. And sometimes they think they're for hurting each other with, and they hit each other with them, or sometimes they try to hide them. Sometimes they try to pretend that they don't have them and that they're not there, and they try to just ignore them, or tell other people that you don't have one, that mine's is better than yours. But this happens at a distance. And when the Gloveleys get closer to each other, when they get as close as they can possibly get, that's when they realise what these things are for. And it's only when they are with someone else that they realise, oh, mwah. And then they can fly off and have adventures together. So this was just it's a little daft show really, but you can get close to people with these, and you can swap and exchange them. And I remember once that I was performing this, and there was a man, or maybe it was a different glove puppet, but he wanted to hold it. And he took this puppet and he held it like it was a baby. And this man had been a boxer. And again, I sometimes think people have all these parts inside that they're not allowed to show or reveal. And then dementia can soften all of that. And you get this guy being a boxer and he was holding this. And I suppose you can feel the warmth of it because my arm is in it. And he held it like this. And of course, I'm in some sort of strange position because I don't want to, influence it really. But I was just moving my hand gently, and he was cradling like a baby. And it was really very lovely. It was a beautiful moment. So glove puppets, that's the Gloveleys. I'm hoping that this is all okay. I know that I can't see or hear any of you, but I'm just going along with this. I'm going to say hello to Leslie and Terry out there as well, because I know that you're there, and that's gorgeous to know that you're there. I've got very interested in miniature theatre, that miniature miniature theatre, sometimes called toy theatre. It's a different kind of puppetry. I like this very much because there's a lot of drama goes around it. And I think, again, someone who's maybe living in a care home or living with dementia, things can become a bit repetitive and ordinary. It can be a long day, we know that. I think to bring something else in that is like I have this little theatre that I created called the Tea Trolley Theatre, and I used to take it round. I worked between a few care homes, and I used to take it round and wheel it around. And again, it's an offering. It's not, this is what you're going to be doing. It's like, would you like? Here, it's here. So I'm going to just show you this. My cat has been very, very well behaved. So this is, I'm going to come round here actually. So this is the kind of thing I'd wheel this in. The Tea Trolley Theatre presents. This is a little play called The King of the Birds. And it's kind of very, very loosely based on the Brothers Grimm. I don't know where I'm going to put myself here for this. Yes. If I sort of sit here, then you can see me. I very much like fairy tales, and well, I love fairy tales, so a lot of my work is kind of based on that. So I hope that you're able to hear this. So I'm going to just tell you the little story. There was once a girl, and she was very, very, very poor. And all she had in the whole world was a dress made of paper. And she lived in a town that there was lots of other people, and they were very, very rich. And the rich people used to laugh at her when she used to say, one day I will have a dress made of the finest gold, and I will be a queen. And the rich people used to just say, no, you won't. You're a girl with a paper dress, and you'll always be a girl with a paper dress. And that used to make her so sad. And when she felt sad, she used to take herself away out of the town, and she used to go into the forest. And the forest was a very, very special place for her. because she loved the sounds of the forest. She loved the smells of the forest and the sights of the forest. And sometimes she would just sit there. Sometimes she'd even lie on the forest floor listening to the birds singing. And it made her feel very, very enchanted. One day, she was there. She was lying on the forest floor just listening to all of the gorgeous sounds of the birds. But she heard one sound that she hadn't heard before. And it was the sound of crying. It's like a little bird was crying. And she looked around and she found a little bird in its nest, just crying. Oh, little bird, she said, why are you crying? And this little bird said, because it's been such a long, cold winter, and I'm so cold here in my nest. And the girl, even without thinking about it, she began to tear off a little bit from the end of her dress. And she took this little bit of paper and she stuffed it into the bird's nest and made him warmer. And now the bird was nice and cozy, and he said, thank you so much for that. And the bird says, do you know who I am? And she said, no. And he said, I'm not any ordinary bird. I'm the king of the birds. And to show that I thank you very much for what you've done, I'm going to give you one wish. Anything that you wish for will come true. Just close your eyes and wish it. And so the girl didn't have to think very much about what she wished for. She closed her eyes and she took a deep breath and she wished and she wished and she wished. And when she opened her eyes again, the little bird was gone and she had a dress of the very finest gold. And the sun shone off of this dress and it was just marvellous. And she knew just what she wanted to do, and she ran back to the town and she wanted to show everyone that what she had always said was true. And the first person who saw her, oh, they couldn't believe it. And the second person, the third, and before long there was a crowd around her looking at this dress saying, my dear, you're beautiful, this is wonderful. And they all started clapping and singing and cheering, and she finally felt that she'd been accepted into this world that she was so desperate to be part of. And to one person said, but look at her feet, she's got no shoes. She's got no shoes, said someone else. She's a fake. You've got no shoes. Ah, we knew you would never really be what you thought you were going to be. And they laughed at her and jeered at her. And suddenly she felt so ashamed, so wrong. And she ran back to the forest because she felt that that was her place. And she got back into the forest. And she was crying this time. And a little bird came back and said, what's wrong with you? My dear, why are you crying? And she said, because everyone laughed at me because they said that my feet were bare and my dress wasn't real. And the bird says, oh, my dear, those people, they saw your golden dress, but I saw your golden heart. And your golden heart is worth 1,000,000 golden dresses. And the girl was so moved by this that she reached up and she gave the bird a little kiss. And I don't know if you know, but when you kiss the king of the birds, something magical happens. And she transformed into the queen that she always knew she was going to be. And so the king and the queen of the birds flew away happily towards their happy ending and a new life began. And that's the end of that. So this was part of this was part of my little theatre that I would walk around with, and so I'd get a little crowd or maybe one person and perform that part. Excuse me, let me just put it over here. And what I love, I just love what I got back. Sometimes people will be like, that's a load of rubbish, or sometimes people will be like, you know, they're kind of gripped by it, and then wanted to speak for some of the characters in it themselves, or wanted me to perform it again and change things. I just, it's just, everything I do is an offering, and I'm open to however people want to take that. So this kind of miniature theatre I like very much, because you can create a lot more puppets than like the rod one that takes quite a lot of time and work to go into that, and you can only use one character at a time. So I'm finding that that the kind of theatre, it's not just about the puppet, you've got all the drama that goes around it. So I wanted to show you another piece. So I'm just going to clear a few things. This is my kind of latest thing I'm working on, actually. So it's a bit of a premiere. I just put this red nose here just in case things got too serious and I had to just kind of tone it down. And anyway,
can you hear the audio from?
Hello? Oh, I thought I was hearing something there. Okay, so this is my very latest thing. This is I love dolls houses. I have lots of dolls houses, and this is I might move my camera back a little bit. So we can. Oh, sorry. You can see that. This is the Dolls Opera House, the Dolls Opera House. Miniature theatre. I know I'm kind of. Yeah. I know I'm running around a lot here, and I hope that that's okay. Right. So, Dolls Opera House. Is it an opera house for dolls? Is it a dolls opera? Who knows? But it's just something that I'm exploring, having a little bit of fun with. So again, curtain. So it's drama. Da, 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 da. And we can have whatever little opera is going to be performed. So I'm going to perform this for you. Oh, hello. Right. So the beauty of this is that I can be at the back of it. Let me just get a little bit of something that I need. Right. So just get myself together here. Everything I need for this. This is the world premiere of this, actually. So well, let's see. I hope you can all hear me. I'm speaking as loud as I can because I want. Yeah. Anyway, so this is called Teetotal and Totally Tea. There's a little cafe somewhere in the middle of somewhere or another, and it sells tea, just tea, no fruit juice, no hot chocolate, and absolutely no coffee. If you come into this tea shop and ask for a coffee, you're shown the door very, very quickly. We joined the cafe one day where a very handsome man and a very lovely woman are falling in love over a cup of tea. It could be Earl Grey, it could be Lapsang Souchong, who knows? In the background, there's a very nosy waitress. She knows the business of everyone that comes into the shop, even more than she knows her menu. And as she's pouring the tea for this lovely couple, she's listening to their every word. And they're talking about love. listening to everything they're saying. And she is saying to this man, "You're just too good to be true. Can't take my eyes off of you. You'd be like heaven to touch. I wanna hold you so much." And the man is singing to her, "And as long as love has arrived, and I thank God I'm alive, and you're just too good to be true, and I can't take my eyes off of you." And because this waitress is so nosy, that she kind of thinks that she's part of this, and she starts going la 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 ra ta 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 ra ta ta ta. And just as they're about to look round and say, "What on earth?" the door opens, and in breezes a very lovely, handsome sailor. And this handsome sailor has just been sailing all around the coast of Australia. And he's got money in his pockets, a glint in his eye, and a song in his heart. La 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 la, ra ta 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 ta, la la, ra ta 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 ta, la 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 la. Well, this waitress is falling head over heels in love with them, and she walks over slowly, slowly, and he whispers something in her ear. Now, is this love talk, or what is this? Well, she walks away, she walks into the kitchen, she comes back to the man and the woman who are still talking all about love at the table, and she says, "I've got a message for you from the sailor, all the way from Australia." And he says that I have to say, "That's not a cup of tea. That's a cup of tea." What is going to happen? Will the beautiful woman fall for the lovely sailor with his pockets full of money? Will the sailor fall for the woman? Will the sailor fall for the waitress? Will the sailor fall for the handsome man? Their love was strong. They knew they loved each other from the moment they saw each other. And then they realized that there's a flat to rent upstairs and that the cafe does takeaway. So they move upstairs into this flat, go into bed, get cozy, and spend the rest of their life drinking tea together, and they live happily ever after. Yay! So that is the world premiere of Totally Tea. And I guess, you know, that this could be directed, you know, I could be asking the questions, what does happen? What's going to happen next? And that's what's beautiful, I guess, about having all these characters, that people could take a character and they could play it, they can hold them, they're made of card, they're not too precious. And I guess that's the other thing, that I'm not too precious about anything that I've made. I make it very kind of, you know, it's not, if it's in that arena, it's fair game. That's kind of my belief there. I'm looking at the time, it's 10 to 3. I think I've kind of talked about everything that I was going to talk about today. Just one last thing. This is my email. I put the V there, V's for Veronica. Sometimes people don't see the V, so I put it there. And if anyone also wanted to just recap, this is what we've been talking about. I hope you can kind of see that I'm having quite a good time, because I think it is about us. If we have a good time and we go in we go in with the energy that we want to pass on to other people. We have to be it. We have to find that first and offer it to people. And I hope that they'll, it's infectious, I guess. So that's kind of me. Thank you so much for, my cat has been so good. Thank you for being here and for listening. And even if a tiny little bit of this has struck something, or even just to know that if you thought you were bonkers, there are people as bonkers or more bonkers out there. So, and maybe would be interested in puppetry or. I'm open to questions.
I'll tell you what, Theresa, absolutely fantastic. I think you've blown everybody away. The questions essentially say, that was beautiful, and thank you, and can you put her email address on the chat? Thank you so much, etc. So, super. Some of the things I'd like to pick up on. Firstly, it's absolutely clear the connection that you can make through creativity with those living with dementia. It's just transparent. It's fantastic. And it's from the simplest thing, discussing the picture you held up at the start, something everybody can get hold of and use and have that discussion where there's no wrong and right answers, through to the variety of uses of music. And like you say, playing to families, playing to a wider group in a home, whatever it be. But it's that kind of common owned experience, isn't it, that everybody can appreciate. Yeah. All the way down to your beautiful theatre that I would not know where to start how to create it, but in your hands, it was absolutely stunning.
Thank you. I think it's kind of my work, I guess, is I'm coming into your world rather than asking that person to come into mine, because that's really hard. We can travel and come back, that person can't. So I just find that this appeals much more to that part of someone's brain that they're living in, and that's what I see. I have enough evidence of that. So.
Yeah, nothing but thanks and glowing comments on the chat. It's you should be delighted.
Thank you. We'll do get in touch. You have my information, and I do work with people who live with dementia, but also people who are not, and do different kind of events and things like that. So, or even just a bit of, whatever, someone wants to ask more questions. I'm up for that.
And if anybody needs more information and directing, other than the contact details that we'll put out there to Theresa, by all means, just contact myself at Yorkshire Care. It's Graham Wilson, and I'll make sure that you're pointed in the right direction. So at this point, it's essentially saying thank you so much for everybody who registered. Thank you even more to Theresa. There'll be further webinars out there in the near future, and we hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you very much.